let's get started, right? So, according to the recent research, that 56% of the organization experiencing data breach or privacy violation due to third-party companies. And we know that after the cloud transformation, we see that a lot of services have been outsourced, right? So previously we had services or applications boxes in our network, so we were putting a big firewall in front of it, and that, well, we're in good shape, right? We can protect everything. But this cloud transformation, we start outsourcing everything. So now we have Salesforce, we have Slack, we have AWS, we have tons of other different services now. And our data is living in there. If something happens to them, obviously it's affecting to us. So, and Black Kite and Supply Wisdom is basically a very fundamental components of monitoring this dynamic environment, because previously you could use a like Nessus scanners, scan all things and then find out the vulnerabilities. But now it's not like that. We can't just simply scan AWS, or you can't just simply get everything that you're looking for. So services like us basically providing that information. Black Kite is focusing on the technical component of that, cyber's focusing on, whereas Supply Wisdom is more holistic approach, geopolitical risk and the financial risk are also being included in the Supply Wisdom. Atul, maybe if you would like to share your opinion on that threat landscape first, and then we can get into the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chandan, it's great to partner with you and Black Kite. When I think about, as I started looking at this whole space of supply chain and third-party risk management, one of the key things that I noticed over the last decade was how companies were using, as you said, more and more third parties to provide their services to customers. And on top of that, that supply chain was becoming more global in nature, which basically meant that the number of risk vectors was rising constantly. And not realizing that the number of disruptions that these companies faced was actually going up in both frequency and severity. And when we looked at all those risks, what we saw was that cyber was a key risk, but so were others. And that's why we came up with this whole aspect of full spectrum risk intelligence, that it's not enough just to look at data breaches or ransomware, but it really, if you wanted to have a more robust risk management resilience capability, you needed to look at full spectrum. And of course, Chandan, you and I will talk more about it. Happy to kind of dig deeper. But that was truly, I think your observation is right. And I don't see it changing as I look into the future. I see the frequency of disruptions rising if companies don't adopt good risk management and resiliency practices.
Yeah, definitely. That's right. So let's get into the how process, right? So let's start with that, right? So organizations like Black Kite, I'm gonna give my own verdict, but let's start with your side this time. So how Supply Wisdom is collecting this data, how to curate that, increase the accuracy, because we hear a lot that Supply Wisdom customers are actually getting a lot of timely and accurate information. How is it being possible on the Supply Wisdom team?
Right. So Chandan, the first capability that we created was this whole concept of radical transparency. And for us, radical transparency was, hey, make sure that full spectrum includes cyber risk, financial, compliance, operations, ESG, nth party, and location. And so when we build this framework across these 7 risk domains, what we did is we said, what's going to matter to companies is they want to know metrics. So it could be revenue, cash flow, lawsuit, merger, breach, right? Or a location disruption, geopolitical, that they're going to want to know metric, a number is out there or a data point. Second is for them to clearly understand how risk is changing. Could we convert that into a rating? So what is the rating for financial risk right now, and what is it after something happens? Same thing with cyber and others. And then the third is risk events occur. It's not a metrics, it's not a rating, but there is a risk event. There's a disruption. For example, COVID, when cities started to shut down, those were risk events that were basically occurring at different points in time, in that case, geographically. So we created an open source intelligent platform. So basically an OSINT platform, where our bots, APIs, and collection engines are bringing in millions of data points and events all the time, right? Because we are real-time and continuous. And then our machine learning and AI basically kicks in And because we have 10 plus years of data, it assesses for truth. It assigns a sentiment to it. Hey, is this positive or negative, right? Is it a high risk, low risk? And the third is it actually analyzes, evaluates, and assigns an impact level. Hey, is this information only? Is it low risk? Is it high risk? Or is it most critical? And then we deliver all that through a cloud-based platform, which can be accessed directly with our dashboards or with open APIs fully integrated in any TPRM, procurement, or risk management and resilience management platform of their choice. So truly leveraging the best of what exists today in terms of cloud plus automation plus data science.
Awesome. Yeah, brilliant. No, it's indeed, that's how we are completing solution, right? Because Supply Wisdom is great that if an organization is struggling financially or they have some legal troubles or the city that they are located is in problems or, those kind of things are very good at that. We are providing the cyber information and indeed very similar methodology. So we are also an open source intelligence solution. We collect data from thousands of different data points, including hacker sites, Telegram chat channels, and surface web, search engines, even security sites, to find out the vulnerabilities, weaknesses about an organization. But we are purely focusing on their external attack surface. So if hackers would like to break into this organization, what are the things that they may find out in terms of their breach credentials or their externally visible vulnerable services, or even misconfigurations on their DNS or email, so which is opening door for phishing campaigns and eventually landing at ransomware attacks. So those are the things that we are using a very similar methodology to collect, but our domain is mostly in the cyber, and Supply Wisdom is basically a bigger umbrella. So that includes 7 different pillars to provide the similar information. So now let's, in terms of the how and what we are providing. So let's focus on the value proposition, right? So let's talk about a few success cases, right? So how our customers are actually utilize our platform and solve their problems, and what was the value that they were getting, what was the problem that they were struggling before, and eventually accomplish that. I'll start with this time. So I'll use GE as a good example, right? So GE is a fantastic size organization, right? So it's 800,000 gorilla in the space, and they have 55,000 suppliers, and they need to analyze the suppliers in an annual basis at least, right? But group of 17 people, if they were doing like every 3 days one supplier analyze, and they work for 365 days per year, it's going to take approximately 35 years to complete the whole cycle. So it is mathematically almost impossible in a lifetime to complete that, right? So most organizations that you're not engaging that long. So what happens is most organizations are only analyzing vendors once in their lifetime, and then the rest is basically a blind spot. So GE was struggling this problem. They were looking for a way to analyze thousands of suppliers with a limited resource, right? So automation and scaling is the big problem that they were trying to figure out. So what Black Kite provided to them is to see the timely information about these thousands of organizations, and also filter for the specific risk factors, like, for example, the companies susceptible to ransomware, companies having data breach. Similar type of things are actually that a lot of organizations were struggling. So, and also one thing that they were trying to figure out is how their vendors alignment to the compliance framework. So it includes a lot of human reading, a lot of documents, which is, that is a very slow process, and it's not easy to scale. So what they have accomplished now is to utilize the solution to Black Kite to get this thousands of companies data in a timely and continuous way, and also parse the documents automatically to analyze over 10,000 companies per year with 12 people. So which was, previously wasn't that possible, but it's actually making it is very easy for them to do that. And another mutual customer is Capital One, a similar story. They have thousands of suppliers, but what they're trying to accomplish is, how are we going to get this many thousands suppliers financial information, or their geographical risk, geopolitical risk, or their cyber risk, right? Cyber risk is a similar story that we kind of enable them to do that. But if you can also share your stories around. I don't know if we can include Cap One in the story in our recording, official recording, but that was also another mutual customer that we had. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So Chandan, I'll make a statement. I'll pause so it's easy for them to edit it. But I know that's not a story we can say publicly. But I'll use other examples. So Chandan, very clearly, I think what you were talking about is the benefits, large organizations, significant scale that automated risk management, risk intelligence can bring to them. And one of the reasons, we enjoy working with Black Kite is the ability to take automated cyber intelligence that's continuous and integrate that with our full spectrum, because we cover the other risk domains. And when we think about uses, human beings are beautiful, but the challenge we have with human beings is we can only do so much work in a certain period of time without the aid of machines. And the second part is the more we do, the less accurate we often are, right? And so we knew that one of the key things we needed to do was automate risk management, which is what we did. And what we have found when we look at our client base, like New American Funding or some of the largest wealth management, some of the largest health insurance companies, is that they have problems, what I would classify generally as in 3 different buckets. They need to assess the risk of any third party during the procurement sourcing process and be able to very clearly know, hey, who's less of a risk, who's more of a risk, and then what do we need to make sure how we mitigate that risk. So there's a procurement use that comes into place when people look at supply wisdom. The second is companies are looking at from an ongoing third-party risk management so that they're able to manage their own operations and understand what may be an early warning, or if there's any disruption that's occurring, so that they can either mitigate that risk early or mitigate that risk much more quickly than they have done in the past. And then the final piece I would say is this whole rise of resilience, where companies recognizing that it's not enough just to do better risk management, but they also need to be more resilient. And particularly COVID exposed that, when companies realized that when they had disruptions, their ability to come back from it was very limiting or was very, very challenged. So how do you make sure that in your system, you understand the overall risk? So Chandan, the examples that I just used in terms of like New American Funding, one of the things we found was when budgets can be limited, but risk management work has actually been exponentially increasing, right? When you think about whether it's COVID or Russia-Ukraine war or war in Ukraine, all those are examples. And now recently, the very unfortunate earthquake and the impact of that in Syria and Turkey as an example, that just very significantly challenges supply chains and third-party risk. How do you make sure that you can do those things on a timely basis? And what a client like New American Funding found was when they automated risk identification across full spectrum, they actually increased the productivity of their risk management staff by a factor of 3. I mean, imagine that. Just that is only risk identification. What we are together doing now is also automated risk mitigation, right? There's a number of different actions that, because we know the metric that's changing, the rating that's changing, or there's a risk event, whether early warning or a disruption, there's certain set of actions that can be automated, from setting up a meeting to a discussion to literally kind of triggering a patch update as an example, right? And I think that's where customers are starting to recognize this, that they can save money, they can save time, and at the same time, increasing the accuracy of their risk management while making the risk managers freer, because so much is being automated, so they can actually focus on the more complex issues. And I think that's the benefit we're seeing.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a big value proposition. All right, so the next thing that we can talk about is that we're not alone in the market. So there are similar product on the market. So we are created a very nice synergy between us. Although I can line up by what makes Supply Wisdom very unique for us and our customers. But I'd like to hear from you, Zed, and then give my own verdict on the Black Kite side. So let's start with you. What makes Supply Wisdom so special? What's the unfair advantage of Supply Wisdom?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I think of that as 4 key elements that I believe uniquely identify us. And some of that benefit is also because of our partnership, right? So number one is we are by far the widest and the deepest coverage of risk domains, because our belief was that companies needed to understand and have radical transparency into their third-party risk. And so we cover the widest and the deepest, number one. Second is all those that I'm talking about is continuous and real time. You know, there are companies out there that cover one domain or they cover a few domains, but they don't really, you know, it's maybe limited. And the second is it may actually not all be real time. And often they'll define doing it quarterly or annual as continuous. Well, that's not. We're talking about ongoing all the time. So those are two. The third is we were very strong believers that what we needed to do was help companies not just know what's happening, but actually give them actionable insight. So our intelligence, the AI that we have created, actually provides them actionable guidance. That's the third part. And the fourth part is this whole automation of the entire life cycle. There are companies that are doing, as I said, some part of the risk identification automation, but we are actually now combine that with risk actions mitigation automation. So you can automate all the way from risk identification to risk mitigation. So Chandan, I think that's where, you know, we're constantly focused on, hey, what's the next piece of intelligence that we can bring in so we keep providing these 4 layers of benefit compared to anybody else?
Yeah, I'll add one more thing on that. So since supply wisdom is a large umbrella, so obviously expectation is a lot of integration with different solutions and also the partners, right? So the data points. So that's actually what attracts us a lot. So we're working with you like 4 years now, I think.
Yeah.
So, and we have brilliant relation, and the best and most important thing that we have always observe on the supply wisdom side is very partner friendly, very integration friendly. You are aware of that. You're carrying a lot of big weight in there. And that weight obviously only going to be possible when you integrate with multiple data points. So that's kind of an approach impressed us a lot. So really appreciate that to be so open on the platform to integrate the different data points.
Yeah, Chandan, I think that's a really good point, right? Because what you are able to see is a single pane view of all risks, right? And I think that's a value proposition where companies don't have to worry about integrating multiple methodologies and approaches. And that's what was very useful when we integrated Black Kite as an example. The methodology conversion and bringing it into that dashboard was actually very easy. And we've taken it a step further now, just like you all have, which is let's make sure that if customers are already invested in a GRC or a TPRM or a procurement platform, they don't have to change the way they do the work because our data, our metric, our intelligence, our alerts, they're all integrated into that platform. So they see it exactly where they're working today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's, you know, on the Black Kite side, we do provide scoring, but most importantly, that's standard based. So as you know that we have some government background, so was working for NATO's counter cyber terrorist task force. So everything that we do must be aligning with some standards. You cannot just simply come up with your own subjective judgments. Indeed, I made that mistake. So here's a funny story for you. Now, I was briefing to some of the generals at NATO, and I happened to, say that, hey, we found a critical vulnerability on this supplier and then exploited that to break into the prime target. And the general said, why do you think it's critical? And I said, according to my experience. And the general said, hey, look, you might be a smart ass, but you're not a standard and you're not going to be standard. Stop using your subjective judgments. We are trying to make a decision as a country, as an army or agency. And the last thing that we need is your subjective judgment. So it's basically people are looking for something very standard. So that's we learned that lesson. That's Black Kite is built on top of this standard stack, so that created by MITRE. So we are fully adapting on the cyber threat susceptibility assessment. It's basically why we are heavily present on the federal government side. So it's one of the big key differentiators. So the data that we have is also very large. So I don't know if you come across that, but Google recently asked us to write a blog post about how come a Black Kite sized company can hold one of the largest database and running on Google. So that's basically, we explain how do we do that with the Google technology and all those stuff. But the amount of data that we have is almost triple times the closest competitor. That's how much data that we are carrying out. So obviously, so the data that we are having is not only for more data points, but also increase the accuracy. So whenever we are presenting something in our assessment, we need to verify that at least 3 different resources is actually agreeing on that specific data, because cyber is a very dynamic environment. You cannot just simply rely on one data point. That is another key differentiator that makes us really unique and separate from the competition. The third one is the ransomware susceptibility index. We recently granted patent for that. So it's basically very unique to measure an organization's susceptibility to ransomware. Is only exists on Black Kite. The last 2 key differentiators are, one of them is, as you know, the probable financial impact. Whenever we analyze an organization, we also measure if they're carrying out your data, how much risk that you're taking with that, right? It's you're basically calculating the risk in terms of money rather than letter grade. Last but not least is the compliance parser. So we have an engine can read the documents automatically to generate the alignments to the compliance frameworks without needing any human being to read that document. So it's obviously making the things a lot easier for a lot of organizations. So that's you know, why I think is Supply Wisdom plus Black Kite is actually making a very solid and comprehensive solution, because once you have the best of the best in their class and combine them together, you're basically looking at the best in the college, right? So it's basically what we're looking here. So let me pause here. Maybe you have additional questions and comments to ask. Maybe the other folks have additional comments or questions to ask. So,
Chandan, I think one of the areas we should talk about is this whole concept of cascading risks. So we've been doing a lot of work. Whenever anything major occurs, we look at it and say, you know, could we have seen early indicators so we could have actually predicted the big incident? And we're seeing that in some cases we actually did, and we did inform customers, not necessarily seeing what it would end up. So as an example, and I'd love your thoughts on it. As an example, we sent our first release on Wuhan viral pneumonia on January 2nd of 2020, before it was called COVID, right? And if you looked at the actionable insight, it literally said, you may need to quarantine employees, number one, because of the health risk. And second is coordinate your health response with your local state and your local and state authorities, right? It was Wuhan on January 2nd. If I remember, by the 19th, it was China. And by the 21st, it was much larger, South Korea, Singapore, and others. And then before you know, and it started as a low risk and became a critical risk, right? I think of something similar when it comes to a cyber breach as an example, right? You can see leak credentials, you can see terrible patch management, right? You can see low email security. You see those challenges, and then you see 6 months later, there's a massive breach or ransomware. So I think we should have a discussion around cascading risk and how should companies actually think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'll give an interesting story on that. Like, we are, Atlassian is our third-party company, right? So we obviously do our project management on Atlassian. So they recently had a breach, but it's actually not from them. It's actually from another third-party company that they are working with. They're sharing data, and eventually they got breached. So literally, third party, which is my fourth party, had the incident and it's affecting me. So it's down the chain. So it's just supply chain is basically going for third, fourth, maybe even fifth party and sixth party, right? Because you don't know what exactly is, how long is that chain is, then your data is being shared with that. And it's true problem. Unfortunately, the upstream and downstream supply chain problems are very visible, especially after the COVID, as you mentioned. So when the supply chain, we first see that the prices are increasing, there was basically that your third party start struggling, and it start affecting you, and eventually affecting your third party, and eventually affecting you. We see that every day in the cyberspace. Most organizations, they don't have their credentials breached, but actually their third party is breaching their credentials, and then they're becoming a target. Obviously, hackers don't care where they get their credentials. They're basically using that to break into the prime target. So it is a very common approach to do that.
Yeah, so I think Chandan, this is why I appeal to risk leaders is why they need to think about full spectrum risk monitoring, risk intelligence. Because if you start to see a third party having challenges, big legal issues, they're lowering their investment in technology as an example, or they're losing key employees, or they're migrating operations to a highly susceptible location. We saw that with Kite and SolarWinds about their outsourcing efforts, and not just outsourcing in a location that was dependable, but location that has high incidence of cyber issues. So that's it exactly where a financial issue, operations issue, location issue ends up dealing a very massive cyber issue, right? So, and I think so as risk leaders, you can't just look at cyber, you have to look full spectrum. In many cases, a cyber issue, especially for a small, medium-sized player, can create a very significant financial issue, right?
Exactly. And indeed, that's a very good example. There's Ion Group, right? It's a Dublin-based financial company, I think. And they're providing a lot of banks to do their job. And they got hit by ransomware by the Lockbit Group. And suddenly, a lot of European banks started to do the work on manual processing. So it's definitely a way of third party and cascading risk in there.
Yeah, Shannon, interestingly, it was just a few days ago, we provided a cascading risk report to our customers on Ion, interestingly. And you can actually see that if you were paying attention to them full spectrum a month, 2 months, 3 months before, and had taken actions, the probability of getting disrupted would have been much, much lower. So I think what we are doing together right now seems like an innovation, a new way of doing things. I think we're just a few years away from it being a standard practice, because then we're going to look at it and say, why are we wasting all this money on these manual assessments when we have this incredible information from real-time intelligence? And now we can actually trigger targeted assessment, not trying to do the boil the earth when it takes so long, so manual, and so expensive to do.
Yeah. So Atul, maybe I'll share why we selected SupplyWisdom as our primary partner when it comes to the broader risk landscape, and also I will ask your opinion on why you think that Black Kite is the better fit for that. But I'll start with first and why SupplyWisdom is actually our choice of partner when it comes to the broader risk landscape. So as we are talking about this third party, the risk is not limited with cyber only. So it's as you mentioned, it's an important component of the trend landscape, but it's not the only reason for that. So a lot of our customers are asking for that. Hey, how about the financial risk? How about the geopolitical risk? How about the health issues? How about the upstream, downstream? How about the global incidents that are affecting a lot of organizations? So, or maybe the cities are affected for that, right? And we're saying basically, hey, look, that's not our responsibility. We are focusing on cyber. We're trying to find out, but obviously it's not solving the problem of the risk practitioner on the other side of the table. They are looking for multiple risk points, and cyber is not enough for them. So although, again, an important part, but it's still one leg of multiple risk factors. So that's why we basically were looking for a partner to provide a broader landscape. And obviously, as you mentioned, that there are multiple solutions on the market, and they're providing that. But the best in the class is SupplyWisdom for the reasons that you are mentioning, and also the being the partner friendly and providing the timely data. And we have seen that a lot of success stories from your customers, and we hear that a lot from your customers as well, the providing the very valuable customer service. So it's not only the very good product, but also very good customer service, also aligning that. And also the broadest risk landscape, right? So if we're going to be partner, obviously we want to be one of the bigger pictures so that we are fitting in. So we see that the bigger picture is being painted by SupplyWisdom. That was our reason why we have selected SupplyWisdom as our partner. So what would make you to make decision on to work with Black Kite?
Absolutely. So Chandan, when we first launched to our customers, we had the other risk domains. We didn't have cyber, right? And only thing we had cyber was risk event alerts. So whenever there was a major breach, major incident, customers were getting alerts, but they were not getting the susceptibility kind of data, we recognized that that was a missing piece. So when we looked at the marketplace, we said, we want to make sure that whoever we partner with has the ability to deliver continuous real-time intelligence on cyber, right? Second one was that their coverage has to be extremely comprehensive. Third was that we want to make sure that we can put our bet on the quality and the relevancy of the data. So coming across Black Kite's standards-based, high quality, massive database, and really aligned to our values, right? Just the way we are, because at the end of the day, it's not about us, it's about how we solve the problems of our clients and how do we provide them reassurance that they have good risk management practices so that their businesses are successful. And I think so on top of the other benefits that I just talked about, definitely our cultures also align very well. Finally, I'll say that we are a company that believes that the solution as it exists today is going to evolve every quarter, literally, right, as we think about it. And I think, Chandan, when I look back today to the last few years, I can see that what we thought you guys were going to do, which is continually innovate, that's what you guys have done. And I love that, right? There's always new vectors every day. There's new ways of solving the problem. But at the end of the day, our solutions have to solve the problems better for our customers. And Black Kite does that, and Supply Wisdom Black Kite does it even better together.
Yeah. And kudos to Supply Wisdom, by the way. So when we partnered, Black Kite wasn't as big as today, right? So you basically bet on Black Kite and say, hey, these guys are going to be the disruptor in the market, and we are now. But it wasn't easy to see that at that moment. So kudos to the Supply Wisdom team to see the light in the tunnel.
Yeah, it's good when your foresight equals real life experience like it's happening today, but absolutely not.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let me pause here again.
Great job, guys.
Anything?
Both of you, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, Kat, did you have any other things? I feel like they've definitely hit more than enough topics for what we needed from a content perspective, but do you feel like we missed anything?
No, and it's funny, we actually had concentration cascading risk on the list, so the fact that it came up naturally between you two is great.
There you go.
No, I think we have plenty, and I was just saying to Mitch, actually, I think we probably have enough to do a full longer length video and maybe some little snippets and things. We can pull some quotes out. I would agree. I think we have plenty to work with.
John, while I have you, I'm just curious. There's been a lot of interest from like PwC and some other. Obviously, I think it's a trending thing. But your vendor mapping product, right? I know it's only available in your site. Is there any way in the future roadmap plans for us to be able to maybe API or put that in our dashboards, or what's the goal for that? Just why I have you. Sorry to sidetrack you.
Yeah. No, that's definitely, that's the plan. So here's how it works on Black Kite. So we release in the UI first as beta, and once it completes its beta process, we go for GA. After GA, like about a quarter once we spend on GA, so we deliver the API. So we don't usually deliver anything on the beta feature because we know that we're going to change it.
Yep.
So vendor map is going to get a significant update in this quarter, and it's going to be GA in the second quarter. So third quarter, we're looking at some API is going to be available for you to able to consume the third party, fourth party relation tree of an organization. So indeed, so when you see the upcoming updates, you're going to love it because we're going to enrich the data significantly, and also we're going to improve the vendor detection mechanism significantly. So we're going to make a lot of surprises on that.
Good, glad to hear it. It's a trending feature set that I think your timing is great to launch it.
Absolutely,
it looks good so far. So compliments. I know there's been a lot of industry and talk about it, and I think it's something people are really interested in. So,
hey Chris, yep. You may want to send the ION deck that Victor just completed to Mitch.
So yeah, we met with him this morning. It seems, first of all, Victor is intent on winning that deal. So that seems to be at the top of his list. So yeah, he shared that with us. I've already shared that with John.
You got it. Okay, good.
There's a demo with your team and our team for Santander on Thursday, I believe.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you for taking that, setting up that call for us, Mitch. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys sitting in that one. That's
Jonathan, are you guys? So you guys are still at Capital One?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so what happened was when the deal moved from TPRM to cyber, they actually canceled our portion because cyber would not fund it. And
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about that.
yeah, so you guys kept the cyber portion, but the CISO stopped funding the other part, and TPRM didn't pick it up. They said they were doing an evaluation and didn't select anybody else either, by the way.
I think they did like a, after the incident, they pulled all the products and then they basically do the consolidation. So I don't know where we are now. Maybe, at the last renewal, they may also give that, because the last time when we were talking to them, like, they invited us to their panel. So we were talking about that. I know that they are a customer, but don't know the last time that we renewed that. When was that happened to?
That was 2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago? No, we were their customer like about 4 months ago. They are our customer 4 months ago. So I didn't check that today, but they are.
Yeah, so that's good to know. I'm glad you're in there, because we're finding that if we're only in the CISO shop on renewal, we face a challenge because CISO goes, why am I paying for it? TPRM should pay for it. And if we have not built that relationship with TPRM, it ends up being a problem for us.
Got it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I feel like
I
there's
think we-
opportunity on both sides
Yeah,
of
Mitch?
that as well, where maybe we're in the TPRM, but we would get the buy-in if we were on the cyber discussion. So maybe Kat, Chris, the three of us can kind of talk about where we could maybe target a specific campaign. I think that
what Mitch, I think what would be highly valuable for both of our teams is, we probably just haven't done it in a long time, or maybe we had a long time ago before I was here, but let's make a go-to-market marketing slick with both of our informations, just a value solution selling of our two solutions together. And let's just put that on the to-do list. It would be great to have that as a marketing pager for anybody we get drive interest from these videos or from these webinars. Is just follow up is selling our joint solution together. So let's work on that as well.
Okay. Yep. Noted.
That's perfect. I've actually got that as a follow-up from this, and we can maybe even host a video like this somewhere and link to that on the one pager. So yes, definitely.
Okay. Atul, Jonathan, thank you very much. You both did wonderful. I think we've got more than enough content, and I think this relationship is stronger than it's ever been, at least while I've been here, and I'm excited to make it grow farther. So appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Yep. Likewise. Thanks,
you.
Atul.
Catching up with you. I'll see you in person soon.
All righty.
Thanks again, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.